Welcome back, Mobile Home Park Nation. Ferd and here again today. Another good episode for you. Got a great guest, friend of mine. This guy's an entrepreneur. He's an investor. He's a mobile home park owner operator. Excited to have him on here today. Please help me welcome Charlie Ansanelli. Charlie, thanks for coming on.
Ferd, thanks for having me, man. This is fun. It's really nice to get the opportunity to talk to you and to not get the bill for it. So I'm going to enjoy this today.
You didn't get the memo. This was actually billable. My rate's double when it's recorded. No,
well,
I should pay you for this, man. You're doing. You look like the real podcaster here. For those of you that are listening in the car, you can't see this, but Charlie's got this baller microphone. He's got this some sort of spit guard, sneeze guard here, earplugs. I'm just sitting here in a cheap suit in a suburban office and no microphone, and you look like the real deal. So
well, we were joking before air, right? That it's like the old "I'm a PC, I'm a Mac" commercial. If you can see this, although trust me, I'd rather be the PC. Ferd's been crushing it. So I'm actually here to interview Ferd, and I'm going to learn a lot about Ferd today.
That's funny, man. Well, I know that a little bit about you, obviously, but for our audience that may or may not, tell us a little bit more of your background and how you got into MHP, and we'll go from there.
Sure. So kind of always been entrepreneurial. Sort of started a few businesses, was able to sell a couple. Still still run one today. And then I was a pretty young guy. I had my first kid. And life all of a sudden became very real for me. It wasn't kind of like, trying things out and having fun anymore. And I started to really put an emphasis on financial security, and my risk tolerance went down a little bit. So I had saved up a fair amount of money. I was looking for, extra income streams, because I was an entrepreneur. When you're a business owner, tomorrow is never really guaranteed, and you got to kind of make your own paycheck. So I was looking around to sort of diversify my income. And a lot of people said, hey, you should probably buy a house and secure your family by buying a house with this money you saved. And that probably would have been a good idea. But instead, I bought a 31 pad mobile home park in Tucson, Arizona. This was not too long ago. This was back in 2017, but it was still early enough where people thought I was kind of crazy for doing this, for buying, a trailer park instead of the security of a single family home. And that's kind of how I got started. My wife and I, we ran that one ourselves from California. We've kind of had a lot of fun with it. She no longer is a part of the business, simply because I can be tough to work with. I can be a little demanding. And a tough personality. But we did very well. We were able to really kind of follow the game plan, increase occupancy, bring rents to market, increase sort of the value of the property by improving the property and its condition. And in a year and a half, not only were we, cash flowing very generously, but we doubled the overall price of the property. And of course, when you use leverage and you have a bank loan, you're getting a very big return on that. And so I think after that, I really got bit by the mobile home park bug. And Ferd, as you know, I think once that happens, there's no going back, right? It's kind of like you see the whole world in mobile home parks. Like everything to me is like a mobile home park now. I see them on the freeways. I drive by them constantly. They're my dreams, and you kind of get bit by the bug. And so now I packed my bags. Like a lot of people, I left California. I'm now in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which is where I have a lot of properties now in Western PA, throughout, west towards Indiana, and looking to always add on more where it makes sense. And so today I own and operate 10 mobile home parks, and it seems like it's going to be 12 here soon. Just constantly trying to improve the properties I have, grow my team, deal with the challenges of scale at this point now. And it's kind of, that's the story.
That's great, man. No, I'm with you. Yeah, you get the bug, and it's just like, if you do it right, if you get your hands dirty, you learn the business, you learn man, it makes so much economic sense. It's kind of fun, right? You're running an operation, I say all the time, this is not the real estate business. It's the operations business. It happens to have a real estate component. It's more like a hotel. It's a hospitality business than the traditional real estate business. But I'm like you, it's fun. So Yeah, the move from California, you're part of that mass exodus. So, how are people in Pittsburgh treating you, being a California guy, or do you keep that quiet?
Probably a little bit better than people in Texas. I hear they're not too thrilled about us Californians heading out there. But no, it's super, super friendly people here. Like, I think my wife and I are pretty decided that we're going to raise our kids here for the remainder of the next, probably decade or so. But it's freeing. I mean, like who knows? Now that I have, I live in mobile home park land. I'm not like tied to geography. I mean, of course, it helps that I'm nearby my properties.
Sure.
It helps. I can get to potential deals faster because I was losing, right? I think to guys who could like get in the car and go shake the hand and meet somebody who owns that park or whose dad built that park. I was missing out on that. And so being able, I think, to be here a little faster to the beat is helping. But I mean, I'm not, I'm not doing the plumbing myself. I'm not, the handyman and stuff. So, I visit my parks probably as frequent as I did when I lived in California, which was quarterly. I make sure I get out once a quarter, at least to all the parks. Other than that, I leverage technology as much as I can, but no. And I think also, I just want to go back to your point too about it is a business, it's an operating business. And that's why I love it so much is that I love real estate, I have a passion for real estate and business. And it's a perfect marriage of the two.
Good point. Good point. Yeah. So you've done a little of both as far as managing local and managing from afar. That's interesting because a lot of people do, especially in California. A lot of California guys like I can't afford to buy a reasonable deal on my price, so all my properties in the Southeast or the Midwest. And you've actually done it from afar, and now you're right there in Plano. I think you're totally right though on the building rapport with sellers and getting to the punch. I didn't have to get this deal, but I almost got it specifically for that reason. The seller was in town. He lived in Oregon, but he was in Kansas looking at this park, and I got wind he was going to be there that day from the broker. He's here today for an afternoon. It was like 2.5 hours away from my house. Like I'll meet him there. And it was the night of the big presidential debate, and I had a pretty good feel for what side of the aisle this guy was on. So I was prepped for it with ammo and talk and wearing the right color hat and everything like that. And I said to the broker, I go, if I bring my MAGA hat, is that gonna get me some curry favor? He goes, you got a MAGA hat? Oh man, you got to do that. Oh, there you got the great hat. Make mobile home parks great again.
Yeah. So if you can't see me out in the podcast world, I just put on this hat that, and this is not to get political by any means, because I'm neither here nor there, but Ferd gave me a great gift. It's a Make Mobile Home Parks Great hat again. So I wear it as a spoof sometimes. It's great.
They're fun hats, but definitely build rapport, right? It helps. So that's good. That's a great tip. But you mentioned scale. I want to talk about that too, because we've been doing scaling a lot here lately, and there's definitely growing pains with it. And processes, people, those systems, it's key to growth, key to success. What tips can you give us as you've gone from 0 to 10? I think there's a lot of people that they hit their speed bumps around 2 and 3. And I just got off the phone 5 minutes ago with a client that's like, I had 3, I went to 5, I need to be at 3. And he's selling 2 of them because he's like, I just can't handle that many because he's doing it himself. He is doing the plumbing, So how did you get there and not have too much heartburn to make it successful? And then still wanting to grow. You're still obviously looking for more, right?
I am. And I'm still, I still want to punish myself because it's not easy when you get to a certain point. And I'm learning and I'm making mistakes. I think what helped is I did a lot of the things kind of, backwards. Like, I didn't start with a single family home rental or a duplex. I jumped right into 30 units. So I kind of had to figure that out fast. And so that kind of forced me to already be sort of in this kind of like mindset of like multifamily and scale from the start. And then being in California and having properties remotely, that forced me already to have to sort of think about, okay, how can I treat this like a business and not like a hobby? Now that said, there's a big difference when you go from 1, 2, and 3 parks to 4, 5, 6 and above, because as I've learned, what you develop, at a certain size does not you can't do that at a larger scale. And a quick example is I leaned on personally for me, I leaned on my on-site managers too much. And I've learned recently that I really need to control much more of this in-house. And I need to hire really full-time highly skilled people and pay them what I can pay them. And you can't do this when you only have 1, 2, or 3 parks. And still today, I probably can barely do it, but I'm doing it because you got to kind of hire a little ahead of where you want to go. It's kind of, I've been picking the brains of a lot of people, and Ryan Smith, Elevation Capital. He's much bigger, than I am, and he runs a really, a lot of self-storage and mobile home parks across America. And he gave me the tip that it's kind of like an accordion. You got to kind of, it's never going to be the perfect time, but you got to kind of hire a little bit ahead of where you're at. So I think one of the things I've been doing is really sort of thinking about all the different components of the business part, the sales, the leasing, the managing the real estate, the contractors, the bids, the accounts payable. What can I bring in house? Because I want to control the quality of all the work as much as possible. When I say bring in house, I'm not doing it myself, but I want to make sure that I have a core team that's doing that. And then I want the on-site people, the boots on the ground, to be nothing more than really ambassadors and representatives of the community. And I only want them to do literally the physical work that nobody else can do. And that's like taking videos. We're now implementing quarterly lot checks, right? And I'm actually building like an app for this. And so that we can like do quarterly lot checks, and there's a checklist, and they're taking the pictures we tell them to take, kind of like a car rental does, right? You go around a car rental as like a car rental check. So I want the on-site managers to literally be replaceable, because I used to go there, I would train them, I would invest in them, and then I'd have like 8 of them, and then one of them would quit, and I have to go back to Indiana, or I have to go back somewhere and then retrain this one person, and I realized, okay, this is not sustainable, this is not going to work out. So that's kind of what I come to terms with lately. I don't know about you, Ferd. I'm curious how you're handling scale, but there's no blueprint. There's a lot of great blueprints out there, to have 1 or 2 parks. And I think a lot of us who are younger in this space are figuring out, how to do this at scale. And I think that's part of the fun and the challenge, quite honestly. And sometimes it hurts. Sometimes it causes me stress and sleep, or lack of sleep. But, if you are an entrepreneur, you like the challenge, I think.
No, great points. And yeah, I mean, to how we're trying to tackle it, I think that advice you got from Ryan is pretty good. That's I've got similar advice, and really kind of just taking some of those same leaps as far as, making that first hire. Okay, I don't really know if I can make that first hire. Oh, I got to splurge. Okay, then that second hire, that third hire, and then pretty soon you start like, okay, now I got assistants, maybe administrative, but I got a bookkeeper. Okay, well now it's like, well, I need more than just the park greeter, the basic park staff. I need like a construction manager, a project manager. Well, that's going to be a higher skill set. That's not a $15 an hour job. Well, crap. Now that's a bigger chunk. I'm going to go spend $50,000 on that, $60,000 on it. And then as you get a little bit bigger, you're like, well, now I got a lot more financial reporting. I got more bank requirements. I got more bookkeeping. I may have investors or doing syndications. Now I need somebody to help with the financial stuff. Like I've got a finance background, so I was doing my own, investor reports and monthly P&Ls, and that. I'm like, it's not the highest and best use of my time. Not that it's a low dollar skill, but I can hire it for less than my hourly rate as a lawyer, for example. So as long as I can get somebody who can do it competently for less than my hourly rate as a lawyer, it makes sense. Well, then I get more legal work on the legal business. Well, I should hire more lawyers, some of whom cannot do as much as depth as me, especially in MHP specific, but they can handle title objections, contracts, leases, zoning research. I've got the zoning pedigree, so maybe they should bring me the research. I can analyze it. So it goes back to an analysis of, I think, how much work do I have now? How many hours am I working now? How much work do I know I'm going to have next week? And how much might I have 2, 3, 10 weeks from now? And, so I told this example. I used to do retail, and in construction for churches, they say, I'm a Christian, they go to Easter and Christmas are the 2 big days. You don't build a church for Easter because it's going to be 60% empty the rest of the year. You got too big a church. It's too expensive and unnecessary. You just accept that church is going to be super full on Easter, and you just deal with it. People are in the lobby, people are in the parking lot. In retail, you build your parking lot for Black Friday. We owned a Kohl's wholesale. Kohl's department store. Kohl's had 424 parking spaces. They used about 100, except between Black Friday and New Year's Day, they used every one of them. and they made half their year's revenue in a month. So it was important for them to have every spot, because if the stall was taken, people would go to the next store. They go to JCPenney or something. So they were built for Easter, so to speak, or built for Black Friday. Well, I feel like as a company, I need to think more like Kohl's and less like the church builder. Like, I'm going to build for the future. I'm going to build for the big day. And because I know I'm going to get there, because I'm a hustler, because I'm a fire eater, and I want to make sure I get it done. And if I don't do that, the only problem worse than not enough business is too much business, and it collapses because you can't handle it.
Yeah, and I would say, that's a great analogy. And the moment you stop thinking big and you start thinking small is the moment that it's going to fall apart. I mean, I feel like, as when you're an entrepreneur, there's only up or down, and it's like, it's kind of like, I'm just going to kind of keep building this until, I don't know, until I'm ready to sort of say, okay, I'm done, I guess, and then sort of kind of divest of some of this, but to like sort of stay the same or sort of maintain, it's just not even in my DNA. And that's a fascinating thing, by the way, about the retail. I never knew that, and I always wondered why those parking lots were so huge. And now I'm going to notice that every single time, and that's totally makes sense.
Yeah. Well, to your DNA, I think that's your entrepreneurial spirit for sure, because I can relate where I think you've heard, I'm sure, the analogy of burn the boats. And, I think it was Cortez, we got to shore and said, we're fighting those guys. And when he got here, he said, we're burning our own boats. If you're ever going to go home and see your families, you're doing it on their boats. But you knew you better fight a little harder, right? And you do that a little bit every time you hire somebody new. I feel like I've brought on north of $500,000 of payroll in the last 60 days. That's burning a lot of boats, right? There's a lot of overhead. So I got some deals covered it. I got some more deals in the pipeline covered it. And I know I'm going to have more deals in the next pipeline covered it. And in fact, I better, right? And then if you hire the right people and you start hire skilled people, not just in theory, but in reality, they pay for themselves and then some.
And one of the things I think I've seen you do, I think I saw a post you posted about this one time, was I think you gave someone a truck. Is that right?
Yeah, I bought $65,000 of trucks last year and a $15,000 apartment. Yeah, I give that over.
I got to start doing the side hustle for Ferd. I got to start working for you. But that's that's kind of the thing, though, is that's what I try and do too. Is I want ownership mentality on my team. I want people who are like, I understand. Like, look, I mean, I've been an employee in the past, and if you haven't, like you're never going to work as hard as the owner, and I don't expect them to. That's not what they're hired for. But I do want them to have sort of like a juicy steak in front of them that they think, is like, that's their steak that they can get on their own. And the harder they work, the bigger the reward is. And I don't want to cap it. So like, I try and do that a lot with things. I try and, put big bonuses out there and not get cheap on them on sort of, whether it's like leasing goals or different sales goals or things like that. I want to bring everyone together and sort of like, make this culture of like, hey, let's make a bigger pie. And that's kind of my goal. And I'm probably not perfect at it, but that's what I try to do.
No, I agree completely. And the way that I do it is a good point on compensation. I'm with you. And Gary Vee had an interesting post the other day that I shared. It was like, don't expect your employees to work as hard as you and want as hard as you, because they're not the owner. They're not supposed to. But you can tweak the mentality and you can motivate them. People are motivated by different things, but we're all motivated by money, I think, to some degree, some less than others. So reward them with financially, but reward them with training, reward them with responsibility, reward them with other accolades. I have a merit badge system that I created where once you learn how to do accounting, you get a merit badge, $1,000. You're good at sales, $1,000. Personnel management, project management, and you start going through all risk management. You find a deal, $5,000. And I give out merit badge, and I can give them this little goofy certificate. It's for fun, like accounting wizard, and it's like you did in grade school, and you put it on your mom's fridge. So just trying to do something like that. And Richard Branson, I love his quote. Train people well enough so that they can leave, but treat them well enough so that they don't. And I've really just taken that to heart. And
I think that's a great quote. And I heard one once before too. It was very similar to that. It was like, someone said like, it was about investing in employees and training them. And someone said, well, what if we spend all this money and train them and then they leave? And the person said, well, what if we don't and then they stay?
Well, you know what's hilarious? I love that. When I used to have about a 75-person team when I was at Jackson County, I had two quotes on the board on the whiteboard. That was both of them. The one I
Oh,
just said and the one that you just said. So we think alike for sure, Charlie. But
awesome.
one thing that I'll give a tip here on this and then give it back to you on the compensation is in my ideal world, all of my employees would make zero salary and they'd make upside because of their production. They'd make twice as much money. But I realize that that's not practical for a lot of people because of family structure or mindset. I've got one guy, he's financially secure already, but his mindset's different, or his just his temperament. It's okay. We don't set him up quite like that. But what I do is I try to give people a base, and I give them a target. Let's say your base is 30,000, your target's 60. Here's how you get to your target. You sell this many homes, you do this many tasks, you work this many hours. We collectively do this much on a deal, and then you get your target. And then I say, here's the cute beauty of the target. It's not a ceiling. If you overperform, I hope you make 80 instead of 30 or 60. And but if they do everything that they're supposed to do, and something on my end doesn't work out, I veto a deal or something, and he only makes 45. Well, he deserves 60 because he did everything he should have. Well, then I know I got to kind of cut a check for the delta. I'm not going to make give 61, but if they did, if an employee does everything they're supposed to, then I can use that target as a target can be vehicle, can be bonus, cash, can be equity. For some of my team gets equity in deals.
Mm-hmm.
And then we just estimate the target based on the projected profitability over projected hold period and divide by number of years, and that's your income off of that asset in any given year. And that's worked out really well at getting some higher skilled people who
Yeah.
are willing to take some risk.
Yeah, 100%. I'm all about the base plus big upside. Let's share in the upside together. Let's make that. Let's create it together. And then also I think the autonomy part too. Like like treat them like they're an adult. I mean, I don't want to handhold anybody. If you're kind of on like my executive team, like my core squad, the starting team, I'm not going to handhold you. You're either an achiever, you're going to go out and do it. We're going to get on the same page what the goals are. I'm here to help you. I'm here to provide the resources. But if you have a kid's soccer game, if you have church, if you have someone has to go to the hospital, it's not that I don't care, but I don't need to know about it. I trust you. I trust you that you're going to get it done because we're working towards these goals together. And I think that goes a long way too. It's like you said, there's a lot of things that motivate people, and I think money is one of the things. Also, I think money sharing in the money is like also like you're respecting their work too. I mean, I think it's hand in hand. And I also think respecting the person as a teammate, maybe more so than like an employee. That's what I try to do. At least again, not perfect, but working on it constantly.
No, I think that's good. The teammate concept, and I'll regularly say team meeting, team retreat. And it's not just the verbiage though. Cerner Corporation is a big company in Kansas City, and there was a famous email that Neil Patterson sent out, the CEO. At the time, he wasn't a billionaire, but he later was a billionaire, and he sent an email out. He meant to send it to his executive team, and it went to reply all. It said like, "I'm here till 9 o'clock at night. I'm here on Saturday. I'm here on Sunday. And if why is the parking lot empty? I want to see all these damn employees or something in their seats, and it got a horrible press. It was like how to not be a boss. It was an MBA school and stuff, and they were like the first company I think to change the name of employees to associates after that. Like our associates, like
now everybody's an associate and a
it.
VP. I've noticed everyone's a VP and an associate everywhere.
Yeah,
That's also funny. That's probably, I mean, the old reply alls. I remember that was like a problem for the better part of first 10 years of email. I think people finally have learned not to do that now. But
I wish I could figure out how to not forget to put the attachment on there. What? See attachment. I'm like, no attachment. I probably have to send that once a week. I'm like, send the attachment. Attach first. Didn't type my name.
I know Gmail's pretty good about reminding you on that, but every once in a while, sure, it still slips through.
That's funny. Charlie, I want to hear a little bit about your use of technology and how you're using that for your team, because that's something that I feel like is lacking in the industry. I think people are using the rent managers and the technology as far as a bookkeeping and property management software, but What else do you use to communicate with teams in numerous geographic locations?
Yeah, it's a great question. I actually started, kind of writing this down. Actually, it's right behind me. Let me just take a little peek as well. Yeah, so I use a combination of things, right? So, like I'm just looking at my board right now because we're just also like I'm constantly kind of like I'm a tech enthusiast, and so I love technology, but I have to be careful that I'm not overloading too many subscriptions because it can get pricey, and also, I mean, my managers, my on-site managers, and even like my kind of core team, a lot of them aren't sort of as tech friendly or tech savvy. So I have to make sure that I'm just using sort of what is going to make our life easier and not more cumbersome. And I think that's one of the challenges of all these great software subscriptions out there. But yeah, I mean, obviously we use, sort of like a property management software system. In the beginning, when it was first like a few parks, you don't need to do that. You can use, like the Google G Suite is perfect enough for your first few parks, in my opinion. You start getting to over 100 pads, maybe 200. You start, looking to invest into something you're going to scale into. I started with Rent Manager. They're great. I have nothing bad to say about them. Great support. I ended up moving though to Appfolio, which was a real pain in the rear. I mean, you know how much you invest, like your data and all of everything into a
They make it that way on
system.
purpose.
It's so real. I know you're such a sticky customer. You talk about like mobile home park tenants are sticky. I mean, geez, you get into one of these like property software subscription services. I mean, if you're at scale, I mean, you're like the stickiest customer ever. But so I hit this inflection. I was like, I don't think I want to build my business on Rent Manager. And that was a personal decision just because like they weren't cloud-based. And I needed something that was cloud-based, something a little sleeker in the UX UI department. I just felt like it was really tough to train my managers with Rent Manager. And it was like such a huge process. And it was like a very clunky thing for me to use and navigate as far as UX goes. And I know they have a lot of robust features, but anyway, so I switched to Appfolio, and they have a lot of really slick things they're coming out that they've come out with. Like they've automated the accounts payable process with some really kind of cool smart technology. And I've really enjoyed that feature and some others. When it comes to team communication, we, obviously we use email, but we've moved on to Slack because you kind of have to have sort of those like, hey, let me get a hold of people very fast, kind of just quick dialogues. We have a channel for each property. And so that's nice. That's kind of like, our work group text, but you're not stuck in this like, annoying group text because you can kind of turn it off and on. It's like a work thing. It's great. Outside of, that, water and sewer is one of the largest categories in operating a mobile home park, as anybody who's new to the space will figure out very, very fast. So we use Metron to track that. That's great. I do pay the extra fee for the smart data, live feed information. And, what I really like about that is I can get ahead of the water leaks. I have and this is a really boring conversation. Anyone who's not in mobile home parks, water meters. But if you're in mobile home parks, it's like one of the most important things. And so I have all my parks now have a smart meter on the master. And then, we have smart meters on all the sub meters. And so I can get real-time comparisons in a chart on what the delta is between the smart meter and all the aggregate of the sub meters. So I know if I have a leak in my system immediately. And then not only do I have someone who sort of keeps tabs on that, but they also keep tabs on who is one of our tenants that has, looks like they have a leak or they're using excessive water. Because yes, we're going to charge them back for that, but at the end of the day, it's still going to land on us one way or another. Because, if they got to pay that water bill, that takes out sort of their purchasing power and their sort of, ability to afford things. Ultimately, that may, end up, they can't pay their rent. I don't want to get into that problem with them. We try and be proactive and help them out with that. So in addition to that, we use Grasshopper for our phone system. We use Asana for task management for managing our projects. That's pretty key. And then let's see, what else do I use? I'm looking at my things here. We just started integrating Show Mojo. Show Mojo, is a pretty sleek sort of software for marketing and leasing, so that you're not sort of gets rid of a lot of the back and forth on the setting up the appointments and sort of makes the marketing easier. Other things, one of my favorites that I think is not talked about is anytime mail. Of course, you can use Earth class mail. There's other options out there, but this is great, especially someone who, like me, I might move around, and I don't really want a PO box that's like stationary. I don't want things like for business coming to my house. So it's a virtual mailbox where all of your mail goes there, and then they will, take a picture. You can tell them if you want them to scan it for you, and then you can see what's in the inside. Then they can recycle it, they can shred it, or you can download it, and or you can forward it. So that's anytime mail. And there's others out there. So that's
I've never heard that. So you don't actually get the physical mail in that instance. Somebody else opens it. And it's just a lot of mail, like all your bills and invoices, or just like only
everything. Yeah, everything goes there. It's fantastic. One login, all my mail goes there. I live virtually. I'm actually inside the computer right now.
Yeah, you were saying UX and IX earlier. I was like, I think I know what those things are, but
like user interface and design.
Yeah, you're definitely more tech savvy than me. But anytime mail, I'll have to check that out. I've got PO box, and I mean, I've never actually been there, but somebody goes every day and goes to get the mail. So there's definitely a staff cost to do that, and the PO, so definitely.
That's right. It's kind of one of those things like you've talked a lot about hiring admins, and so I look to like, hey, how much can I replace first with technology, and then if there's gaps, then I try and get admins to kind of coordinate a lot of those gaps.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I've had pretty good success with in-person admin. We tried the virtual systems a couple times, and I've had more challenges with that. And so I've really kind of honestly got stuck with got the overhead of additional people at admins, but I like just, hey, I can holler at somebody and they can help and do a number of things for me. They've been really, really valuable actually. But anytime mail, I'm gonna check that out.
Yeah, that's my pro tip for the day. That's a good one.
Yeah. Well, before we jump, any more tips or stories you want to share based on your experience?
Sure, there's some stories.
Your biggest horror story or biggest mistake in the business, if you want to share that. Maybe you made that.
I mean, I'm trying to think about who's listening and like what's appropriate on this, because you're in the mobile home park. I mean, there's some stories. There's some horror stories, but yeah, I probably won't go into all of them. I don't know. I mean, just if you're new getting into this business, you're gonna learn that anything can happen and anything will happen, and there's a wide range of people out there that live in a wide variety of ways.
So that's a nice way of saying there are some people who can not socially adjust to society, and they will end up in your trailer park.
I mean, you've been in those homes, right, Ferd, where you walk in the home and you're like, oh, I gotta get out of here. It's like you get in the house and it's like, ooh, that's a smell that's going to be stuck with me for the next week.
I got a pretty strong stomach, but I was with another employee one time, and we were walking in this house, and it smelled horrible, and they had I want to say it was 16 kids living there. It was sad, man. And they had no beds, no furniture. Their clothing, they had one room was just clothing they got from Goodwill, and they wear it till it stinks so bad they throw it in the other room and they go get more free clothing. They slept on the floor, all these people, moms and dads, everybody on the mattress. There weren't enough mattresses for all of them, so that the teenagers would sleep in the corner of the room and have a towel, as a bath towel was their sheets, no pillow, sitting in the corner, just like unbelievable. These people live like this.
That's kind of like the thing about mobile home parks, and I've told other people too who are kind of curious about it, is like you see the best and the worst in humanity, in my opinion. I mean, you see the people who are working really, really hard to sort of like be that generational stepping stone and to provide, sort of better for their kids and get their kids into the good school district, live in a manufactured home, work really hard, kids have a better opportunity at life. And then you also see the opposite, where it's like just a cycle of abuse and poverty. And then you walk into it and you're like, oh my gosh, these kids, they can't believe they were living here like this. And so you see the darkest parts of humanity, and you see the brightest spots. And so it's a very interesting duality.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah. And this guy in particular, I got right in his face, and you don't deserve to have these children, and I'm gonna do what I can to get them taken from you. because my coworker threw up because the smell was so bad, and the kids would get up and cockroaches would run out from underneath them. They're sleeping on beds of cockroaches, and just like, holy cow. But that was one of those, like, man, yeah, you're right. You smell you've never seen. Had homeless people are living in a house. You walk in there, they're in a house. It's like, you get crazy stories like that, and then you get the nice little lady who brings you cookies every time you see her and stuff like that. You're like, this is great.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, and they could be next door neighbors.
yeah, they could be, right? Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah, but no, I think one of the coolest things at mobile home parks, though, is there is a strong sense of community that you don't get in other multifamily. At least from my experience, like apartments and stuff are just people kind of stick to themselves a lot. For
You don't
whatever
even get it in.
reason,
I don't think you get it in a neighborhood. I
no,
mean,
not even neighborhood.
you know,
Yeah,
I've got a nice neighborhood, and we got community pool and grilling and stuff. We go over there, and like, I know some of my neighbors. We have a mobile home park. Everybody's friends. I know them. They wave at me. They're friendly. I'm like,
yeah,
kids are dating each other and going to school, hanging out. And like, man, this is purpose, because they're like all have the same like outlook on, hey, we're staying here because it's a better community than the apartment. Like, in the residential, a lot of guys like, I go there because it's a bigger house or a better neighborhood. I don't go
yeah.
for the community. I go for the structure or the location. These people go because it's a better price point among other things, but it's a better community atmosphere in a similar price point than a multifamily. And they're like, we might as well be here and enjoy it.
Yeah. That's one of the really cool things, and I think that I always try to tell people, hey, look, I'm not doing this because I'm like Mother Teresa. I'm definitely a capitalist first, but I do think that money and morals and ethics can go hand in hand. And I think one of the coolest things is when you do turn around a community. Yes, it's going to benefit your pockets, but if you turn around a community, it's also going to like benefit the people that live there. I mean, you're going to be making it nicer. You're going to be taking care of the roads. You're going to be making sure that you're vetting who's coming in. You're going to be making sure that people are painting their homes. And what happens is like a community turns around and you start to see it become like alive. It's like a living, breathing thing almost sometimes. And I think that's probably one of the coolest things. How do you feel?
Oh, absolutely. I agree. We just bought a park here in Kansas City 2-3 months ago, and there's one guy that he had not paid rent in 10 years. And we told him, and he had so much junk. We put two 40-yard dumpsters in front of his house. And you know what he did? He filled them himself. We were going to film him,
Wow.
get rid of the guy. He filled them himself. He had a broken window boarded up in the front. He replaced the front of his house and the window, cleaned up his yard, and said, hey, I'm going to do my part around here. Paid rent first day. It's like, he saw we were putting money in the community to make it better. He goes, I'm not going to be the outlier here bringing this community down anymore. And he's like, a new lease on life. You know what I did? Starting yesterday, he's on the payroll as a groundskeeper. Okay, I'm not even joking. Like, hey man, you want to work? We got to clean that hillside up, brush, trim trees, haul trash. He's like, I'm in. The guy had no job. He was like, I don't know if one stolen radio to the next or however he got by previously, but not paying rent helped. But I mean, culture shock for him. What does that do for his life? He's got 5 children. Like, he's gonna make a grown man out of him, and he's gonna make community better. And yeah, it's just a shot. And we're rolling out a painting program on Tuesday at this park where we paint every home in the park, including the tenant-owned homes. And it just changes the atmosphere, and it helps me honestly when I get the next 10 rolling in that I can sell them across from a newly painted house instead of a 1972 Buddy with the original paint job, right?
Yeah,
So,
right.
so it's not completely altruistic, as your Mother Teresa example, but it really is a high tide lifts all boats, and it's one of the best things about the business to watch if you do it right.
Now we might be getting into the weeds here for anyone who's listening, but when you do that, do you give them a choice of colors or like?
Well, it's funny you asked that because the parks that my dad runs some of the parks, I run some of the parks, and the ones I run, I give them 8 sets of colors, 2-tone. We do body and trim. And it's 16 colors options. And I'll let you move them around a little bit, and they're pretty vanilla,
Yeah.
pretty like my jackets, a little gray, a little black, there's no pink, there's no yellow. And it costs about $500 labor materials. And I say, let's split it. And I try to get them split it. If somebody can't afford it, they don't often say that, but I'll just say, hey, tell you what, can you do $10 a month? I'm sure you can afford it, but $10 a month for, until we get there. Okay. And then they go for it. And I get some buy-in. I want some skin in the game, some ownership, but my dad likes all these eclectic colors, so he encourages bold colors. I mean, one park that's largely Hispanic, a lot of Puerto Rican people, and some of them already had bold colors. So it looked, to put a bunch of beiges and grays was look a little odd. So
Yeah.
he's like, let's just embrace it. And I kid you not, we got 52 different colored houses in that park, and it looks like a Taco Bell with all the different colors and stuff. But
I love
it actually
that.
looks good. It actually looks
I
really
love
good.
when it's like you see the pinks and the purples and the turquoise.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I've done a community like that, and there's something about that. I'm like, well, it's probably won't have a drug dealer here. It looks like a pack of Skittles. Yeah, so hit
It's
one of the
lively.
seniors. It's not hard.
it's yeah. I'm actually coming around to it, to be honest, because it looks really good in the other parks we've done it at. But it took me a while to get there.
Yeah.
All right, Charlie. Hey, before we jump, where can people find you? How can they reach you after this?
Yeah, sure. So I'm not incredibly hard to get a hold of. They can go to my website, rockstackcapital.com, and they can email me, Charlie at rockstackcapital.com. And happy to, anyone has questions on mobile home park operating, investing, technology around it. I've kind of looked at it all, and happy to have dialogue and be helpful where I can.
All right. Thanks, Charlie. I appreciate it.
Right on. Thanks for good talking to you. All right. Bye.